All right, there we go. All right. So we're talking about leadership today. We got a bunch of questions to talk about. This was actually an assignment for a class that you're taking to have a conversation about leadership. And I figured we should record it to put a little extra pressure on you.
Yeah,
But you ready for this first question? You ready to jump in?
yeah, yeah.
All right, cool. So I've got my own answer, which we can talk about in a second. But here's a question for you. What does leadership mean to you?
I think I think leadership is obviously a person leading other people, obviously.
Hmm.
But I think it's a combination of some there's leadership with ideas too. Like
Okay.
somebody doesn't need to necessarily lead as a king or a president leads his or her country. Um, or a captain leads a hockey team. Like somebody can come up with an idea and people can follow that idea without the person who came up with the idea even knowing that everybody else is following him and him being a leader.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think leading is leading other people down the path that led you to be a leader. And
Interesting.
yeah, it's
So
kind of
meaning like showing the way I'm interpreting what you just said, leading other people down the path of that led you to become a leader. It's basically leading through example, showing
yeah,
people how to do what you've done.
yes, yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
Interesting. That brings up some questions. You might not have an answer to this one. I like that definition, but the wise ass in me, the question is, what about if you're trying to do something that no one has ever done before? What about like putting an astronaut on the moon? Somebody had to lead that. Never been done before, first time ever. But you don't have to answer that. That's just a that's just a wise ass question. I liked what you said about leadership of ideas. People can follow an idea without the person who came up with it even knowing. I didn't think about that aspect. My very literal brain went to let me just Google the definition of leadership. So let me give you. I got two different. I technically it was the word leadership instead of leader, which I guess could have a slightly different definition. But let me give you the two that I found that I kind of like. One is super simple. The leadership is the action of leading a group of people or an organization. And the second is leadership is the art of guiding, inspiring, and influencing individuals or groups towards achieving a common goal or vision. So that one was a little bit longer, but I think the keywords were guiding, inspiring, and influencing.
Yeah.
But here's something I realized when I was looking these up. Nowhere in these definitions or any definitions that I found does it say that you need any kind of qualification, any kind of permission, a degree, a rank, anything like that. It leads me to the idea that you can lead from all over the place, right? So like you're 13 right now. 13-year-old boy can be a leader in his family, can be a leader in on a sports team, can be a leader in all kinds of different ways. And at the same time, like your 4-year-old sister can be a leader in this same family, just like you can, right? Like no qualifications, no permission, no degree, no rank, nothing necessary. You just
Yeah.
need to, if we, depending on which definition we use, but like guide, inspire, and influence. Can you guide? Yeah. Can you inspire? Yeah. Can you influence people in the, absolutely. So I think the flip side of that for me is you're not a leader just because you have a title, right? So
Yeah.
if you as a 13-year-old could lead our family, and I don't mean like be the only leader of the family, but I mean like lead in different types. I think we'll get to this at one of the later questions. The flip side of that is me. So like you would expect me to be the leader. I'm the dad,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
Little stereotypical, but I'm the man, right? But
mm,
mommy or daddy would be the leader, right? In this case, like you would expect me to be the leader, but people who would be expected to lead might not actually be leaders, might not be exhibiting leadership, right?
mm,
So we could think of a bad general who freezes on the battlefield Or like I said, me, you'd expect me to be the leader in the family, but if I don't show up, if I don't, we go back to that definition, guide, inspire, and influence people in our family, then I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader just because I have a title, right? And so I think I love what you said. The things I would add are kind of hammering home that point of no qualifications, permission, rank, or degree necessary.
Yeah.
But that also means that when you have those things, when you have all the qualifications to be a leader, when you have everyone's permission, they're like, yep, we're following you, coach, or you're the dad, we're following you. When you have a degree or when you have a rank, when you're a general or whatever it is, that by itself also doesn't make you a leader, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever seen, and you may not, but have you ever seen in your life a man or a woman, I guess, or girl or boy, it doesn't have to be an adult, who was in the position of leading? Maybe they had a title, maybe they were expected, maybe people were following them, but they did not do that guiding, inspiring, influencing, leading, actually following through on the leadership. Have you ever seen that in your life?
Um, I don't think I personally have, but I've read about it and I've watched it
Okay.
in movies before.
Okay. Well, that's good. Lucky you. I've seen it. I've seen it plenty of times. Um, it's definitely a situation that's frustrating, and I don't want to go too far off on in the weeds on that one, but there's, as we will talk about, because some of our questions are definitely about this idea of you can be a leader from anywhere, right? When you encounter someone in a position, in air quotes, of leadership who is not actually leading, you yourself can step in and kind of fill the void a little bit and can lead a little bit. So let's go to the next question. So the next question ties right into this one, and I want to get your answer. Again, put you on the spot. I want your answer, and then I'll give you my answer. But what are, to you, to Kyron, what are some important skills that a leader should have, or that you would want a leader to have?
The first for me is the ability to communicate with people
Hmm. That's a
because
good one.
if you want to lead them, they need to understand you. And then bravery, I because I like war, if you're a leader and you run away as soon as you see the enemy, none of the soldiers are gonna want to follow you.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
the be the ability to solve problems.
Problem solving.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And honesty too, because your people that you lead need to be able to trust that you can do what you're saying you can do. And then
Yeah.
politeness too, because
Politeness. What do you mean by that?
if you scream and yell at everybody that you that you lead,
Yeah.
they're not gonna want to follow you. So
Okay.
being not necessarily polite, but like being nice to people, and they'll want to follow you more than if you're not nice to them.
Okay. That's a good list. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, actually, you used different words. So I think that was five. I think you just gave us five, four or five.
Yeah, something like that.
Four of them are on my list, except slightly different words. And we'll definitely, I do want to get to my list in a second. Um, but first, I want to tell a story about problem solving. Um, and I agree that a leader should know how to solve problems. But I think a lot of times, so like let's take you for an example, and you can be completely honest. Do you think you're a good problem solver?
Sometimes,
Sometimes. Okay. I knew you were gonna give me like a kind of answer. I think you're a good problem solver, but I also think that when you struggle to solve a problem, so you said sometimes, and I know you, so obviously I can see behind the scenes a little bit, right?
yeah,
But I think you make the mistake of thinking that being a good problem solver means you need to know the answers to everything. right? Solving a problem is not the same as having the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you a story to illustrate what I'm talking about. And I might screw up some of the details of this. It's a fairly well-known story. I forget the book that I read it in, but obviously you know the car company Ford, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So started by Henry Ford,
Yeah.
and this his story is great. Like if people should read his autobiography and learn from him. But he had like a really low level education. I want to say he stopped school in like second grade. I might be completely off on that. Don't if somebody will look it up and be like, "Hey, you're so wrong." Don't throw this story out if I'm off on the grade that he stopped. But he stopped his schooling pretty early. And so he started his company, years go by. He's had a lot of success. Ford Motor Company has become a big, big company. And
Yeah.
at some point, and I don't know all the details, but at some point, um, they like when you have a company and you turn it into a public company, you get a board of directors. The board of directors, if you're not careful, has some power to be able to force the founder, the CEO, the guy who started the company, they can actually force him out. It happened with Apple. So
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, very well-known guy, actually got forced out of Apple and then made his way back in and then led them, and then he eventually passed away. So they were trying to, the board, I think it was the board of directors, whoever it was trying to force Henry Ford out as the leader of Ford Motor Company. And they actually had him in, I believe they took him to court, like they sued him. And they were trying to make the argument that he was not intelligent enough to run such a big company. Like
Okay.
completely missing the fact that he was smart enough to build it that big. Like I'm pretty sure he's smart enough to run it. But logic
Yeah.
aside, they were using this argument that it's like you have a second, let's just say second grade education. You have a second grade education. You're not smart enough to run this company. You should step down. We're going to force you to step down. We want the court to force you to step down. And his answer, which, not exact words, but they're focusing on, we're talking problem solving versus having all of the answers. Okay. They're focusing on, they're not looking at problem solving. They're looking at knowing all the answers. Right. And so this is going to illustrate the difference. So his response to this idea that you're not smart enough to run the company because you don't know these things. They have them up on in front of the crowd, and they're like, okay, well, solve this math problem, and do this physics equation, and figure this out. And he's getting frustrated, and so he kind of responds in a frustrated way. He's like, different words, but his message is, I don't need to know all of this crap. I have the smartest people, doctors, scientists, researchers, everyone. I have the smartest people on speed dial. Any question you can think of, I know who to call for the answer. So therefore, I don't need to know the answer. And what he's doing is, I know how to solve the problem. I'm going to go ask that person because he's a physicist. You need to understand this about tires. I'm going to go talk to the rubber expert and I'm going to ask whatever it is, right? He doesn't need to have all of the knowledge. Second grade level education or whatever grade it is, right? He doesn't need to know this stuff because he knows where to find the answer. To me, that's leadership. Like, I don't need to know all the answers to be able to problem solve. So that's the story I wanted to tell you. I think that highlights and I think that's a great thing to have on your list is problem solving. I think that highlights the importance of problem solving over having all the answers. But it's similar to the first question. I Googled what traits make a good leader. And with everything you look up online, obviously you need to take it with a grain of salt. You need to think for yourself before trusting everything as true. But I want to show you something. So let me just pull this up. I'm going to read to you from three different websites, three different articles. And I'm not gonna read much. I'm just gonna read you the traits, the characteristics that they say make a good leader.
Okay.
Okay. So this one has 12. And some of them might repeat list to list. Just bear with me.
Yeah.
Self-awareness, respect, compassion, vision, communication, learning agility, collaboration, influence, integrity, courage, gratitude, resilience. We have another list. It's going to repeat some, but I'm going to read them all. Integrity, innovation, vision, passion, communication, delegation, learning agility, adaptability, decision-making, accountability, self-awareness, empathy, courage, gratitude, influence, respect. Third list, I think there's only 5 on this one. Uh, Kind of scroll to the right spot. Decisiveness, that's a new one, which is a good one. Trustworthiness,
Yeah.
empowerment of others, clear communication, and resilience.
Yeah.
Now, all of those sound good. I think we probably just read like 25 of different words, getting rid of the repeats.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, and I'll read a couple of them again. I won't read the whole list. Did you hear any traits, any things on those lists that you couldn't learn if you wanted to?
No. No, I did not.
I'll read you some more. I'll read you one. Let's just do one list. I'll read it again and see if you can think of, or see if you can find anything on this list that can't be learned, developed, practiced, improved if you wanted to, obviously.
Yeah.
I'll read one list to you again. Let's just go to this first list. Self-awareness, respect, compassion, vision, communication, learning agility, collaboration, influence, integrity, courage, gratitude, resilience. Any of those that you think you wouldn't be able to learn or improve if you set your mind to?
No, I do not think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
So I think that some people hold themselves back when they have conversations about leadership and they say, "Oh, I'm just not a leader." Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like when we start talking about what makes a good leader, maybe some people tune out because they're like, "Well, I don't have it. I'm not a natural leader." And I think people can probably be a natural leader. Like they can be drawn to leadership or they can just step into it willingly and maybe not be afraid. Or maybe
Yeah.
they have some of these traits that we're talking about naturally are strengths of theirs. But the point here for me was looking this up. I was like, wow, none of these are things that are maybe you're naturally good at them, but none of these are things that can't be learned. There's no reason you can't become a good leader unless you don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So let me give you my 5. All right. So the first one on my list, and not like I didn't rank them, I just put 5 on the list. So, but the first one I put was empowering others. I think that's
Yeah.
really important. I think this is the only one, or I said you had 4 that matched some of mine. This matches a little bit of a stretch, but when you said politeness, I
Yeah.
related it to this. What you said was something like, if you're going to be a jerk, nobody wants to follow you, right?
Yeah.
You might because they have to, but they're not going to want to. To me, it that goes hand in hand. Politeness goes hand in hand with empowering others. I think good leaders build others up and in turn make them into good leaders.
Yeah.
It's a way of like further extending their influence, right? So
Yeah.
if I teach you how to be a good leader, I have now affected the world through everyone that you affect. And if you look at an organization like a maybe somebody starts off as like a sergeant in the army,
Yeah.
and as he advances in his rank, he's always training the people underneath him to be good leaders, and now those leaders follow him, and now that they go into a battle and he can trust those leaders, and now his unit performs way better because he's made good leaders out of other people,
Yeah.
empowering others. You said communication. I think communication is absolutely essential. Leaders are going to need to resolve conflict. To do that, you need communication skills. You need to delegate tasks. You need to get others to cooperate. You need to inspire others. You need to know how to communicate. So you said honesty. The word I used was integrity, which to
Yeah.
me is doing what's right no matter what, doing what's right even if no one is looking. How many times have I said that to you in your life? You need to be doing what's right even if I'm not watching you. I shouldn't have to watch you to get you to do what's right. I think within integrity, like a good leader needs to be trusted by the people following him or her, that
Yeah.
he's going to do what's in the best interest of those that he's leading instead of just his own. If you have a leader who doesn't do those things, if you have a leader who's, stealing money from the group for himself or whatever it is, you're not going to want to follow him or her. They tell stories that are, if you've seen movies, um, You have not seen Band of Brothers, but Band of Brothers is a show about World War II, an army unit. And when the leader refused to fight with the men, when he just hid, when the bullets start flying and he shuts down and all he cares about is keeping himself safe instead of keeping his men safe, the men are not very loyal to him. They
Yeah.
don't really care if he dies. They actually kind of want him to die to get a new leader, right? That's a kind of
Yeah.
an extreme example, but it's integrity, doing what's best for the group, not just yourself. You said bravery. Absolutely. I said courage. Same thing.
Yeah.
I coupled that with faith. I think because you need to be able to take action even when you're scared, which is courage or bravery.
Yeah.
But that also requires faith, faith in yourself, faith in God. Without faith that you're on the right path and the courage to do the scary things, to continue down that path, you can't be a good leader, if you ask me. And then five, I put vision. So without a vision, how do you know where you're leading people to?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Without a vision, how can you really even lead yourself? All right, so that's my list. Here's a question for you, and I'm curious about your answer on this one. You and I had talked before we got on here about leading from within. And in the answer to the first question of what is a leader, we talked about leading from all sorts of different places. So why don't you tell us what leading from within is?
Um, I I I couple that with like similar to leading by example. Like you being you and other people follow that.
Okay.
And yeah, like it's pretty simple. You other people see you and they want to be like you. And that's that's leading from within. You can do it on purpose. You can't really do it on purpose because you can't make other people want to be like you.
Yeah. But you can make the decision yourself to be that way, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So so when I say leading from within, and you and I have had conversations about this, whether it's our family or whether it's a sports team, um, but there are times when you're not like the head of an organization or a family, right?
yeah,
So you're 13 years old. When you're playing basketball, you're not the coach.
yeah.
Can you still be a leader even though
Yes,
you're
I
not
can.
number one? Okay. So like how? Talk me through that, whether it's a family, whether it's a team, like walk me through an example. How
Be
could you lead on the team?
be the person that you would follow.
It's a good answer.
So I would want if I was trying to lead within on my basketball team, I would try to be like a person that I would want to follow if I was any one of my basketball teammates. And then
Good
the
answer.
same with the family. If I wanted to lead from within with my siblings, I would be the sibling that I would want to follow if I was one of my little sisters.
Good answer. Yeah, you only have you only have sisters. So,
Yeah.
um, good. Yeah, I like that answer. Be the person that you would want to follow. I think that's fantastic. And I would add to that, if you are that person that you would want to follow, eventually people are going to start to follow you.
Yeah.
And they may not be like, oh, Kyron's the leader of the, let's say you're at work, right? Kyron's
Yeah.
the leader of basketball. It's like, oh, well, Kyron's the captain of the team. Like it may not be like that, but they might not even know that they're starting to follow you, but they're following your lead. They're following your actions, right?
Yeah.
As a coach, we're using the basketball team example, as a coach, um, what I would look to you or any one of our players to do is work hard, follow directions, um,
Mm.
pay attention when I'm saying, hey guys,
Yeah.
pay attention. We need to know this. And doing all of those things are slightly harder. It's not the easy way, right? Like not taking the
Yeah.
easy way out. So that's a great example. I would, so like if you're the person that you would want to follow, eventually people are going to start to follow you.
Yeah.
The other way I was looking at it, leading from within, is like you can't control the fact that you are a teenager. You are not in charge of our family, you have a say in a lot of things. We take your opinion into consideration. We ask for your opinion a lot of times. But
Yeah.
ultimately, when it comes down to it, like me and your mom are making decisions, right?
Yeah.
That can be frustrating sometimes, but one day that will change. And the only way to be ready to be a leader when it's your time to step into like the leader role, right? So
Yeah.
we're now talking about a family, right? So when you're a teenager, you're not the number one leader, but you can lead from within. You can practice these traits that we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
You can you can be the person that you would want to follow. You can do all the things we're talking about. That's all practice for when you step into even bigger leadership roles, whether that's with
Yeah.
your own family or whether that's going and getting a job or whatever it might be. You can practice that stuff. You can, even within the family, you can earn more leadership as you prepare yourself for these other situations and these other groups that you can lead.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cool. Cool. All right. So you mentioned leading on purpose a minute ago. What is that? What is leading on purpose?
Um, I would say trying to lead people. It's kind of like a wise ass answer, but leading on
Okay.
purpose is leading on purpose. But what I would
Helpful.
attach to that is not just like trying to lead people, but practicing those skills we were talking about and improving yourself so that you can lead people and
Okay.
people will want you to lead them.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you can lead on purpose and you can lead from within and you can do both at the same time. Sounds good.
exactly. Yeah,
Cool. So are you a leader on purpose?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. How? Tell me more.
Because of the class that we're doing, interviewing people, just trying to practice these skills and trying to improve myself and become a leader.
Okay. All right. So I'm interested in this, your answer to this next question, because I want to get better at this specifically. And so I guess it's kind of a two-part question, and I'll just give you the first part, and we'll come back to the second part. But um, how do you think that you, the royal you, so not Chiron, but someone in general, how do you
Yeah.
think that you can train yourself to be a leader while you're a teenager? The second part's going to be how can your parents for like help you, right? But just
Yeah.
let's just take the first part. How can a person train themselves to be a leader while they're a teenager?
Well, I'd find groups that you can lead. So for me, that's my family, my basketball team, and uh, co-op kids that we go to. Um, for other kids, that could be school, at art. If you go to art class, if anything like that, you could lead anywhere, and you just practice the skills we've talked about each day. And
Hmm.
while you're in these groups, so at school, try and practice these skills and practice your communication. Try and get more confident. Try and get people to trust you, and they'll eventually people will start following you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My mind when we say teenagers goes to, I mean, you're pretty close to I guess this depends on what state you're living in, but you're pretty close to the age where you can actually get a job.
Yeah.
Um, so then that might be a potential place to lead, even though you're going to be one of the youngest people there, depending on your job, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, one answer that immediately jumps out to me, advice I would give you and anybody who watches this, if you're young, if you're a teenager, even if you're younger than a teenager, how to train yourself to be a leader is to lead yourself. And if we go way back to the beginning, the definition that we started with, it was a leadership is basically three words were guide, inspire, and influence. So a leader would guide, inspire, and influence other people. So I would say the first place you start is to lead yourself, guide, inspire, and influence yourself. Okay.
Mm, yeah.
Develop a vision for what you want. a plan for how you're going to achieve it, right? Um, maybe that's things you want to do, things you want to build. Maybe we're talking about basketball, right? So maybe it's a goal that you have for basketball. I
Yeah.
want to be, a high school varsity basketball player, and then you reverse engineer what you needed to do, and you're getting clear on that vision, and you're putting in a plan for how you're going to achieve it. Maybe
Yeah.
this is a topic for another day. I think maybe we should actually do a series of videos on exactly how to get clear on what you want to do as a
Yeah.
teenager or not, and then how to chase after it and how to do all this stuff. But that would be like the number one place that I would go to is lead yourself, guide, inspire, and influence yourself. And I would absolutely agree with you. Those traits that you and I talked about, and whatever others people have that jump out to them as important in leaders, like get to work on those. Figure out what you
Yeah.
think is important in a good leader, and then work on developing those. I like that advice.
Yep.
Okay. So we already so that's talking about what people can do to become better leaders. Let's jump to the question, I kind of referenced this before. Let's phrase it this way. What, from your perspective, so you don't have kids, but you are a kid and you're being raised by parents. And so, what is the best way to raise a leader? So, you can look at that as like hypothetical, or you can look at the things that your mom and I have done for you. And you can say, okay, well, this is what you've done well that's helped me become a leader. This
Yeah.
is what you haven't done well that's actually helped me back from becoming a leader. And like, I'm not going to get mad at you for saying, oh, hey, you kind of screwed this one up. You should have done this differently. That's exactly what I'm asking. So, that was a lot of questions to throw at you. But
Yeah.
what's the best way to raise a leader, or what have we done well? What have we done poorly?
Um, well, obviously, teaching them how to be a leader is a very important. Teaching them the skills that you need and then giving them opportunities to lead is very important because you can learn everything, but if you don't actually put it into practice or you don't have a place where you can use those skills, they're not very helpful. So, learning the skills, using them,
Yeah.
and then not letting yourself fall into like always following everybody else.
Okay.
Because if you always
S-
follow everybody else, then you're going to keep following everybody else and you're never going
Yeah.
to end up actually leading. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So you gave me, I want to, there was a very good answer. You packed it in very short. I want to unpack it a little bit. So you said, I think, three things:
Yeah.
teaching them how to be a leader, teaching them skills, and then giving them opportunities. So let's take
Yeah.
those one by one. Okay. So teaching them how to be a leader. To me, that's like having this exact conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
what is leadership? How do we develop like all of these things? Actually, just having conversations. Is that what you mean by that? Teaching them how to be a leader, talking about it?
Yes, but also being a good leader to them too.
Mm, yeah.
Because if you're a horrible leader, but you talk to them on what being a good leader means, it gets kind of confusing. And then it's just, yeah, you're probably not going to be a good leader if you were led by a horrible leader that taught you how to be a good
Yeah.
leader.
There's a quote that comes to my mind, and I'm not gonna get it right. I want to say it's a Dale Carnegie quote, whatever it is. It says something like, "There's nothing more confusing than someone who gives good advice but sets a bad example."
Yeah,
Right? So like I can tell you what a good leader is, and I can say you should do this, 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 and this. But then if I'm a terrible leader, like you're like, what? What's going on?
yeah, yeah,
You're more likely to watch what I do and learn from what I do than to listen to what I say and learn from what I say.
yeah,
Everybody is, not just you, not kids in general, just everybody. So yes, teaching them how to be a good leader, it means good conversations, but more importantly, as you said, well, being a good leader yourself.
yeah,
Okay, so the second thing that I had on my list is teaching them skills.
yeah,
So does that mean like the traits that we talked about? So what do we say? Let's pick communication. So like now helping them learn how to communicate better, or do you mean something else?
Yeah, just helping them learn how to communicate better, talking to them on how to communicate better, showing them how you communicate, but also not letting them figure out their own way without making your way the only way.
Okay. So letting them do it their way, even if
Yeah,
it's screwing up.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. This is good parenting advice from a 13-year-old. We should we should bottle this up. All right. So I like that. Again, you kind of hinted at and reiterated, and I'll just come right out and say it. Um, being the example, right? So
Yeah,
like, yeah, you can teach the skills. Yeah, you can help them learn it. But if you're not displaying them, if there's any parents that are listening to this, if you're not displaying these skills, don't expect your kids to learn them.
yeah,
Awesome. Um, Giving them opportunities to lead was the third piece.
yeah.
Uh, Talk to me more about that because I know what you mean, but I want you to explain it again, just to hammer it home. So important.
So, so it's just show them places where they can lead. Like I didn't realize. Well, I didn't not I that I didn't realize this, but like I didn't think about leading on my basketball team until we talked about it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could do that. I always looked at other kids and like, man, everybody follows him. I wonder why. But never actually was like, maybe I should start doing stuff to make to so everybody follows me and just showing them and teaching them and telling them where
And
they could lead. And if they don't want to lead, you can't really make them do it. But yeah,
yeah, you can't force it on them if they're not ready.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'll say from a parenting perspective, this is very, very hard because I'll use the words like father and dad just because I'm not a mom, so I'm just going to stick with dad. I think
Yeah,
dads are used to this idea that we're supposed to teach you. So like the first two things, teaching them how to be a leader and teaching them the skills. Those are
yeah,
the first two things on your list. And then the third thing is giving them the opportunities to lead. The first two things is like we're teaching, we're showing, we're
yeah,
we're doing and they're watching us, right?
yeah,
That comes very naturally to or hopefully comes naturally to parents. And I think the dads that I talk to, like that's our kind of go-to mode is like, okay, I'm teaching. Let me show you how to do this.
yeah,
But when we have to give you the opportunity to lead, or like even if I'm teaching you how to, I don't know, screw in a screw, at some point I have to let you do it, and you're gonna do it not great the first time.
yeah,
You're not going to be a good leader the first time you try and lead, even if you're naturally talented at the things that are required for leading.
yeah,
And for a parent, it's really hard for them to let you struggle. And so, from a parenting perspective, this third piece is the hardest from a teenager or even younger perspective, from a kid's perspective. I would say um, you might have to remind your parents that they need to give you like this opportunity to lead. Like,
yeah,
hey, dad, let let me try this. And if I screw it up, I screw it up, and I'm going to learn. Just let me try it. I'll be okay. And you don't want to say it like rudely, right?
yeah,
Like a good leader doesn't say things unnecessarily rude, right? You said
yeah,
politeness. But like from my perspective, you've had to say things. Especially your oldest of the three sisters has said things where you guys are like, dude, let me be. Let me do this. Give me a chance. Let me do it my way. Whatever it might be. I want to do it my way. Even like 2 and 3-year-olds will say that. Like, no, I want to do it my way.
yeah,
So you might have to nicely tell your parents, like, hey, I got this. Even if it's not the fastest way, let me do it this way. Let me try. Okay. And I think that's okay. I don't think, obviously, you might be intimidated or scared to say that, but I don't think you should be. I think most parents will respect that as long as you deliver it well.
Another thing is you asked me, how do you give your kids opportunities to lead?
Yeah.
By doing the first two things, teaching them how what it means to lead and how to lead will in itself give them Like they will probably use that knowledge,
Yeah.
and it's good to give them more opportunities to lead, but just teaching them how to lead and the skills to lead in itself gives them an opportunity to lead.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is my last question. Obviously, you can ask me questions. You can say whatever you want. We don't have to be done right this second, but
Yeah,
look at it as a two-parter, I guess. So maybe we'll say this is my second and last question. So what
yeah,
if we, speaking about like your life specifically and your parents, what have we done as your parents that has helped you or put you in those positions to be a leader? The second part is going to be like, what have we done poorly? What have we done that's held you back? Or what did we screw up? So let's start with the good stuff. What have we done well to help you become a leader, even if it's very specific opportunities?
yeah.
Um, what do we do?
Um, Having conversations like this
Okay.
and just talking, and obviously you being a good leader and showing up well. Um, Putting me in the Apogee program
Okay.
for the for training leaders is probably good for becoming a leader. Um, I think teaching me skills, whether it be leadership skills or just life skills, because that gives me more confidence to lead other people. Like,
Okay.
I feel more confident about leading my family if I can cook than if I can't cook or
Yeah.
do the laundry or fix my car. I feel more confident about leading my future family if I can do those, if I can have those skills than if I didn't.
Yeah. That's a good point. Because
Yeah.
I think so like to give context and we're not like this isn't like, oh, Kyron's so awesome. Let's brag about Kyron. You are awesome. But don't get me wrong, you are awesome. But like one of this you mentioned cooking. And I do want to bring this up as an example because you made a really good point. Like it gives you confidence to handle things.
Yeah.
So for I don't know, a couple of years, we've been having you almost every week, once a week, cook dinner for the family.
Yeah.
And I want to say maybe like 2 years. So maybe when you were 11, you started
Yeah.
and you needed some help in the beginning. You needed some supervision, heavy, hot, heavy pan coming out of the oven. Like obviously mom or dad did that. But at
Yeah.
this point, like you are almost 100% cooking meals on your own. And like this is, I'm biased because I'm your dad, but they're good meals. Like they're not boxed macaroni. Okay.
Yeah.
So like you're cooking like chicken thighs in a pan, you're boiling the water, cooking the pasta, making the balsamic sauce, chopping up tomatoes, basil, mozzarella, throwing this all together and serving it, right?
Yeah.
It took you a while to get there. And in the beginning, I think you were kind of like, really, I have to do this. It was kind of cool. It was an adventure, but then it became like a regular thing and it became a little bit of a chore.
Yeah.
And now you're saying like that gave you the confidence
Yeah.
to know that like I can cook for myself if I need to.
Yeah.
And I agree, like regardless of how people feel about guns, like when I taught you to shoot a gun, that's a confidence thing. Like now you know how to shoot a gun if you ever need to. It gave you confidence. Driving the four-wheeler around the yard, the UTV or the side by side, like you're 13, you're not allowed to drive on the road, but you know how to drive.
Yeah.
You should practice more before you try and get your license, but like
Yeah.
these things give you confidence. And so I think that's an important point for parents to understand, like
Yeah.
giving you guys some responsibility, letting you do some things that might make us scared gives you confidence, but it's also important for you and the kids watching this to understand when you are given responsibility, when you're asked to do things that you might be like, but none of my friends have to do this.
Yeah.
Think you're 13 cooking dinner. It's like, I'm not 21 living on my own. Like I'll learn to cook when I'm 21. It starts to feel like a chore. It's gonna give you confidence. When you can do things that other people can't do, it doesn't make you more worthwhile as a human being. Like you're not worth anymore, but it's gonna give you confidence. And
Yeah.
so a reminder for parents, but also a reminder for kids, like it gives you confidence. Um, Okay, so what have we done poorly that maybe has held you back from becoming a leader? And you're not, you can throw me under the bus. I'm not gonna be mad at you. Be honest. What, like, let's give some either parents or kids watching, whoever is watching, some examples of what to avoid. Like, is there anything you can think of that we didn't do well, that we haven't done well?
Um, you guys are pretty good parents, but I think that
Paid to say that.
you I think that you guys let me get away with a little bit too much, and now I struggle with with letting myself get away with that too.
Okay.
Like I have trouble stopping myself from doing stuff that I know I shouldn't be doing.
Okay. That's, well, that's human nature. But
Yeah,
yes, I hear
yeah.
what you're saying. Um, what about something like, is there anything you can think of, um, maybe example, and maybe situations where I didn't let you lead, where it's like, no, I'm the boss. We're doing it my way. Or maybe I didn't teach you something. So we go back to your 3 points, how to raise a leader, teach them how, teach them the skills, and then give them the opportunities. Can you think of an example of me not doing one of those three things? I know there have been
Um,
times.
I'm trying to think.
Putting you on the spot.
Um, I can't think of a specific example right now, but I think one of the biggest things out of those three is just not letting me do it my way.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
because
the
you
hardest.
do.
Like I said, that's the hardest from a parent's perspective.
Yeah, because I you teach me the skills, you teach me how, and I think the biggest thing is just you didn't let me
Yeah.
figure it out myself.
What's the point if I don't let you do that? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely been times that I can think of where that's happened. Um, and the flip side of that recently, like you wanted to go to basketball camp this summer.
yeah,
Um, and so nicely, I said, all right, cool. Well, why don't you do it? Why don't you register? Get the
yeah,
form. Um, you handle it. We mailed it in. You had to call them the other day and see if they'd gotten it yet because they hadn't
yeah,
cashed the check. And you just took the phone, walked upstairs, made the call. And
yeah,
it was cool to see, like, you just stepped into it, right? Like, that might be a little bit intimidating for some, 13-year-old kids,
yeah,
whatever the age. It's like, okay, I have to handle this. I have to fill out this form myself. I have to call and say, what? And so, like, giving you the opportunity to, even though you're not actually having anyone follow you in that situation,
yeah,
it's giving you the opportunity to, um, go back to those traits that are important in a leader. You said bravery, doing something that probably intimidated you, that probably scared you a little bit, didn't know how exactly to do it. You might screw it up,
yeah,
but you need bravery. Communication. You got to talk to people on the phone. You got to say, hey, what's up? Did you guys get this? What's going on?
yeah,
So you're practicing these traits, and so yeah, there've definitely been some opportunities where I didn't give you those opportunities. There's one recently where we did give you that opportunity.
yeah.
um, but okay, awesome. That was a lot of good stuff. I think we covered a lot. I think we can leave it at that. Is there anything else you want to say on the topic of leadership, or are you all done?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, we'll do this again. Like I said, we'll have to put together some videos on like exactly how to figure out what you want and go get it for people your age, because I do think that that's important. Being able to show others how to do that first, you guys got to learn it. So we'll be back to do something like that. Um, and yeah, nice job, nicely done.
Definitely. Thank you.